Welcome into another edition of Extra Innings. Collyn, this past weekend, South Carolina sweeps the Bulldogs. They take care of Georgia in Athens. Off to the best start since 2000. What more can you say about this team?
They're exceeding expectations right now, and we expected this team to be much improved from last year for a lot of reasons. You retool that offense, you get some pitchers healthy, you bring in more, obviously more talent into the program, and I don't know if I anticipated 20-1 and going down to Georgia and sweeping the Bulldogs in Athens for the first time since 2010. So it's been really impressive. The offense has been much better. Top to bottom, the pitching staff has been as advertised. It was incredibly ballyhooed coming in. That was supposed to be the strength of this program, and it has been. But you pair that with an offense that has been electric through the first 21 games. You're slashing 310, 451, 619 with 56 home runs. That has the makings of a team that can contend for a top 8, top 16 seed, and be a force potentially in the postseason.
The craziest thing about it all, Collyn, and I know everyone will talk about this probably more than anything. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the offense, but the home runs. I mean, the fact that they had, I believe it was 58 home runs, something like that, just under 60 all of last season. And you're just a week into SEC play, and they've already hit more home runs this year. I know we've talked about it before, but how much is that Monty Lee, and how much is that just this team as a whole? I mean, we want to give credit here, but is there other factors into it as well?
I do think Chad Kaye needs a little bit more credit than maybe people are talking about. The guy that was the hitting coach last year who inherited, frankly, somewhat of an empty cupboard. He did his best with what he had, and you saw a great year from Brant Belk in a grad transfer year. Josiah Seitler turned into a professional prospect under Kaye's tutelage, and he was responsible. All the guys that we're kind of talking about out of the transfer portal, when it comes to your Will McGillis's, when it comes to your Gavin Costas, your Caleb Denny's of the world, Kaye was responsible for bringing some of those guys in, and because Monty didn't take over until August. So it's in part Kaye restocking the cupboard and helping, Cole Messina develop, helping Talmadge LaCroix develop, helping Michael Braswell and some of those freshmen and Carson Hornung who are playing a ton. Now he'd helped get them a foundation, and Monty has obviously taken that and run with it. And they're two different. They approach baseball the same way, but different philosophies. So still want to use all fields, what hitting coach doesn't, but Monty's big into working counts, drawing walks, getting on base, and setting the table for your RBI guys, taking quality at bats to go along with it, where Kaye still wanted quality at bats, but it was, let's attack early in the count. You're going to get your best pitch early. Let's try to hammer that and get on base that way. So two different philosophies, but give a lot of credit to Kaye for restocking. Monty Lee walked into a better situation probably than Chad Kaye did, and he's reaping the benefits of that. And it's great to have that, but you have to do something with it. And through 21 games, Monty Lee has been incredibly beneficial to this program, and you're seeing the results offensively through these first 5 weeks of the season.
You mentioned the approach at the plate just being different with Monty Lee, and I know earlier in the year you mentioned how South Carolina was taking more pitches at the plate, and how it seemed different. It seemed different. The discipline at the plate this season, is that the biggest difference you've noticed this year? Or is there other things about this offense that have stood out to you?
Yeah, it's the plate discipline. And in part the power. I didn't think they would hit for as much power as they're hitting for right now. I mean, you're talking about a team that has 216 hits with 37 doubles, 5 triples, and 56 home runs. So did I think that was going to be the case? No. But the plate discipline is something that I've been really impressed with through these first 21 games. You're seeing a very low chase rate more often than not. And you've walked 135 times in the first 5 weeks of the season. You've struck out 182, but high walk teams, like Monty said, strike out a little bit too because they're taking pitches, because they're working counts. And sometimes you get into those 2 strike counts and you strike out because you're trying to do that. But against Georgia in 23 innings, you walked 18 times over 23 innings, got hit by 3 pitches. Now you struck out 27 times. That probably needs to come down, but the plate discipline's there. I think of no other better example than Braylon Wimmer and Gavin Casas. Braylon Wimmer has struck out 18 times in 21 games. He was pretty strikeout prone last year, and he's walked 12 times. So you're talking about a guy that understands the strike zone better. That was the next step in his development, and he's done that so far. And Gavin Casas, with those lefty bats who love to go pull side and hit home runs and drive in those runs that way, those guys tend to be high strikeout guys. And Casas has struck out 19 times, yes, but he's also getting on base at a 495 clip. He's walked 19 times. He's gotten hit by 5 pitches. So yes, the plate discipline's there. You're going to see strikeouts, but to walk along with it and to get hit by pitches and find ways to get on base, I think that's a wrinkle in this offense that you just didn't have last year compared to, what you have this year. You didn't have that as much.
In game 1 over the weekend against Georgia, what was your overall thoughts about Will Sanders' outing?
It was okay. He's still getting hit. When he gets barreled up, it's usually off of his fastball. He needs to cut down on that. He gave up 7 hits in 7 innings, 5 of those going for extra bases. So you need to find ways to not have other opponents barrel the ball up on you. You need to find a way to get that fastball a little bit more swing and miss, but his other stuff has been there. He still threw, I want to say, close to 65%, if not more, of his pitches for strikes. Struck out 6 over 7 innings, only walked 1. So you're getting the strike throwing. You're getting the swing and miss stuff. But now it's about, can you avoid barrels? Can other teams not get hard contact off of you? And that's the next step in his evolution. And what I will say, though, despite that, number one, they still won the game. He gave them a chance to win. And he went 7 innings and protected that bullpen to a really, really high degree. And that's what you want from Will. I think he's going to get to a point where he's back to that dominant Friday night guy as he continues to ramp up. But you still need more just swing and miss, more of that dominant ace level stuff from Will. And I think he'll get there. It's just a matter of time at this point.
So you sweep Georgia. You rule them at that, 2 games in a row, 20-1 start, 11 straight wins. They have Charlotte tonight as we tape this, getting ready for that game with an opportunity to improve to 21-1 before you take on a very good Missouri team who's coming off an impressive sweep themselves. At this point, Collyn, how much do you feel like you truly know this team? And in terms of what we're seeing right now, do you feel like this is something that is a representation of what this team could ultimately be? Or is it more so a product of a couple of things? Maybe the competition they're playing. What I'm trying to get at is, how much do you feel like you know this team? And I'm not trying to discourage what we've seen. I'm not trying to take any credit away, but we've seen this before where it's so early in conference play and people are like, all right, but then again, you look at some of these numbers. You mentioned the year 2000, best start since then. It's hard not to just get a little bit more excited and geeked up about it.
Yeah, and I've waffled on this because, yes, you've played good, like some good teams. I think Penn was a good team. They'll contend for the Ivy League title. Clemson had some bats, and they had 1 or 2 arms that have been good. Georgia had 2 really good arms and a couple bats. So and you still have LSU, you still have Florida, you still have Vanderbilt, Arkansas left to go. But at some point, we do have to start evaluating this team and saying they are what they are. And that's a team that's on the cusp of breaking into the top 10 nationally. That's 20-1 and just swept an SEC team on the road in 2 run rule victories. So this is when South Carolina, when everything is clicking, it's a team that can contend for a top 8 seed, a team that can contend to host postseason baseball at Founders Park. And you saw that. They still have growing to do. They still don't have a true leadoff hitter, which is a concern. You still need more production from the center field spot, whether that's a Will Tippett, Evan Stone, or Dylan Brewer. You need to continue to develop defensively. But right now, you're playing about as well as anybody in the country. And it's not a finished product. You're going to lose SEC games. I don't think South Carolina's going 30-0 in the league. You're going to lose a game when Paul Skeens, who's the LSU ace, he's going to go in there and throw well, and you get 2 runs on 4 hits, and it's just a bad night offensively. But the totality of it right now is you're one of the best teams in the SEC right now. The totality of it is you're one of the best teams in the country right now. A top 15, borderline top 10 team. So enjoy it, South Carolina fans. Understand that there's still room to grow. Understand that there might be a lull in April when you have to go LSU, Florida, Vanderbilt, boom, boom, boom. I don't know if last year's team wins that Sunday Penn game. I don't know if last year's team wins that game 1 game at Georgia. You have a veteran group that understands winning, that doesn't panic in big moments. And that's important to have if you're South Carolina. So we'll see what ultimately comes of it, but it's been a really fun start to the year. And if things continue to develop, you're talking about a South Carolina team that's going to be playing meaningful games to end May and then potentially have a shot at hosting postseason baseball in early June.
As we wrap this up, and I knock on wood, I don't want to be the guy that jinxed it, but so far at least, South Carolina has done a great job with these midweek games. And as they go into one tonight against Charlotte, obviously that is – you're starting to have more road games for some of these midweek games, right? I know it's going to go back and forth a little bit, but I bring that up, Collyn, because it seems like in the past that was always a killer. And it became, once you got late into the season, once you got into late March, you got into April, now it's kind of like you're playing catch up and you have to take 2 or 3 in these SEC games against some very good teams. And again, they were able to find ways 2 years ago to be able to do that. I bring that up because how important has that been early on to be able to see them do that? Because as you've mentioned before, that's why I'm asking you this way instead of what do you want to see tonight? You're just going to say keep winning. So I wanted to ask you this way to be able to do just that and take care of business, whether it be a Tuesday game, whether it be a Wednesday game.
You have the pitching depth to do it. And it's an offense that's hummed through the first 21 games. But in reality, it's about pitching. Last year, you were so hurt and so thin from a pitching standpoint. You couldn't risk throwing Matthew Becker or Kate Austin more than an inning or 2 on a Tuesday or Wednesday night because you needed them on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So now you can throw Eli Jones for 4 innings. You can throw Eli Jerzembeck for 2 or 3 innings. You can throw Kate Austin for an inning or Jackson Phipps for an inning or Chris Veach or whoever. I'm probably forgetting a name or 2, but you have the depth to where not only is it productive, but you don't have to tire your arms out to do it. And the pitching depth is one of the biggest reasons why they've been able to win these midweek games. And it's one of those where typically teams have to win those midweek games 8-6, 9-7, where South Carolina can go out there and win them 3-2. They beat Presbyterian last week 5-0. So they have the depth to do it, and the offense can tee off on some people and hit for power. And that's a really, really, really good formula if you're South Carolina to win those games.
Last thing I want to ask you, obviously big weekend on the campus of South Carolina. And when I say on the campus, I mean Gamecock athletics. We understand There'll be a big basketball tournament taking place in Greenville. But even with that being said, for the women's team, I expect Founders Park to be rocking when they take on Missouri. Number one, do you feel like that will be the case? And number 2, how important being back at home against a very good, I'm still going to say very good. I know it's still
they've been talented. They're really talented.
We're talking about how good is South Carolina at this point. Right now, we'll say Missouri's a very good
Missouri's
team.
a good team. Yeah.
They're coming off an impressive sweep. You're at home. How much of a difference can that make?
It's huge. This fan base has been itching for important baseball for a really long time. And this is one of those series. It's a top 25 matchup in both polls, a top 20 matchup in one. So you're talking about a ranked team coming to Founders Park against a top 10, top 15 South Carolina team. That's exciting. I think it's going to be Friday night. I think it's going to be rocking because there's nothing like Friday night in the SEC. And I'm really excited to see what this looks like. And I think it's going to be huge for South Carolina because this is an emotional team. They feed off of that. And they love it. They embrace it. And so I think that having a sellout or close to sellout crowd at Founders Friday night especially is really, really going to be exciting.
All right, he's Collyn Taylor. Be sure to watch South Carolina take on Charlotte on Tuesday night. It's Gamecocks look to improve to 21-1 before they take on a Missouri team who is coming off a big sweep over this past weekend, and they also are ranked 22, depending in one of the 1 million baseball polls that you watch. But I'm going to go with the one of their 22, where the Gamecocks are 11. Collyn Taylor, again, appreciate it. Catch him and the one and only intern Joe on Foul Ball.
There you go. Nights, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Yes.
There we go. And we'll be talking some football tonight with intern Joe as well. Everyone have yourself a good week, and we'll do it again next week.